The great crystal spires of Zentara Prime stretched into the purple sky like frozen lightning. Inside the largest spire, the Galactic Council was meeting. Representatives from 12 different star systems sat in a massive circular chamber that could hold thousands of beings. Taiho Kim adjusted his simple black suit and looked around the chamber with wide eyes. Next to him, Youngmi Park was taking notes on a basic tablet while Do-hyun Lee stared at the alien technology with his mouth slightly open. They sat in the observer section, 3 humans among the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The Nexari Empire requests permission to expand mining operations in the Theta sector, announced a tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms. Counselor Vextar's voice echoed through the chamber with natural authority. His species had ruled space for over 2,000 years. Taeho leaned forward slightly, pretending to struggle with the translation device in his ear. In reality, he understood every word perfectly. His brain had been modified with bioneural implants that could process dozens of alien languages instantly, but the Council didn't need to know that. The Keth Confederation sees no issue with this request, rumbled Thuligan, a massive creature that looked like a walking mountain covered in gray scales. However, we suggest the new species be given simpler tasks. Perhaps the humans could help with basic labor. Young Mi looked up from her notes and smiled politely. We would be honored to help in any way we can. She said in careful accented English that the translation device is converted to galactic standard. Earth is very grateful for this opportunity to learn from such advanced civilizations. Several council members made sounds that might have been laughter. To them, humans were like children trying to sit at the adult table. Earth had only made contact 6 months ago, arriving in a single ship that looked primitive compared to the sleek vessels filling the orbital stations around Zentara Prime. The collective speaker Morthes shifted in her chair, her crystalline body catching the light. Perhaps we should discuss protective oversight for human space, she suggested. Young species often make dangerous mistakes without proper guidance. Do-hyun nodded eagerly. That sounds very wise, he said. We have so much to learn about space travel and diplomacy. Earth's military is very small and simple compared to yours. What the Council didn't see was the micro-expression that passed between the 3 humans. Do-hyun's statement was technically true. Earth's military was small compared to the combined forces of 12 star systems, but he had carefully avoided mentioning anything about technology or capability. The session continued for hours. The Council discussed trade routes, territorial disputes, and resource allocation across hundreds of worlds. The humans took notes, asked basic questions, and appeared amazed by everything they heard. Honorable Councilors, Taeho said during a break, standing with obvious nervousness. May I ask about the defense systems protecting this station? The engineering is incredible. Of course, young human, Vextar replied with condescending kindness. The crystal spires are protected by quantum barriers that can stop any known weapon. Each spire has its own fusion core providing unlimited power. The orbital defense grid includes 50,000 automated platforms. Fascinating, Youngmi breathed, making more notes. How do the platforms coordinate their targeting systems? Thuligan seemed pleased to explain. A central AI network processes all threats and assigns targets within nanoseconds. No enemy has ever penetrated these defenses. Amazing, Do-hyun added. I wish Earth had such advanced protection. Our largest cities have only basic missile shields. The aliens nodded sympathetically. Poor humans, they thought, so far behind in every way. As the session wound down, Taeho approached the main podium with humble steps. Honorable Council, we request permission to establish a small embassy here. Just a few rooms where Earth's representatives can work and learn. The Council members exchanged glances. Several smiled the way adults smile at children asking for toys. Granted, Vextar announced. We welcome Earth's participation in galactic civilization. Your embassy may have 3 levels in Tower 7. Will this be sufficient for your needs? More than sufficient, Taeho replied, bowing deeply. Earth is grateful for your generosity. Such polite little creatures, Morthus whispered to Thuligan. Perhaps we should assign them a cultural mentor. Good idea, Thuligan agreed. They'll need guidance to avoid embarrassing themselves. The humans gathered their simple belongings and followed an escort toward their new embassy. As they walked through the gleaming corridors, Do-hyun stumbled slightly while staring at a passing security robot. Careful there, their escort, a green-scaled diplomat named Sektar, said kindly. These halls can be confusing for newcomers. Don't worry, you'll learn to navigate them eventually. Thank you, Do-hyun replied sheepishly. Everything here is so advanced compared to Earth. When they reached their embassy, Sektar showed them the basic facilities. The communication array has been limited to standard civilian channels, he explained. For security reasons, you understand. If you need to contact other council members, requests must go through the diplomatic office. Of course, Young-mi said. We wouldn't want to accidentally cause problems with our primitive technology. After Sektar left, the three humans stood alone in their new embassy. For a moment, they remained in character, checking the walls and furniture as if amazed by alien design. Then Taeho made a subtle hand gesture. The change was immediate and startling. All three humans straightened, their expressions shifting from wonder to cold professionalism. Young-mi pulled a device from her tablet case and swept the room for surveillance equipment. Do-hyun began examining the walls and ceiling with expert eyes. Taeho activated a small device that created a scrambled field around them. Report, Taeho said quietly. Full-spectrum recording achieved. Young-mi replied in crisp, military English. Bio-neural implants captured everything. Complete defensive specifications, command protocols, and tactical assessments of all major council species. Excellent. Do-hyun, structural analysis complete. These spires have 12 critical failure points that would bring down the entire complex. The orbital defense grid operates on predictable rotation patterns with a 4-second gap every 23 minutes. Their central AI has obvious vulnerabilities that our viruses could exploit in under 10 minutes. Outstanding work, Taeho said. He activated another device, this one disguised as a simple pen. Command, this is Ambassador Kim. Phase 1 complete. The Council has accepted our cover story completely. They see us as primitive newcomers seeking guidance. A voice replied through his neural implant, clear as if the speaker stood next to him. Confirmed, Ambassador. How do you assess their threat level? Minimal, Taeho responded. Advanced technology but poor tactical thinking. They're overconfident and dismissive of potential threats. Recommend proceeding to Phase 2 immediately. Understood. Your support team will arrive tomorrow disguised as cultural exchange students. Maintain your cover and continue intelligence gathering. Copy that. Command. Young-mi was already uploading her recordings through an encrypted channel hidden within what appeared to be a simple email to her family on Earth. The message would reach Earth Command within hours, where analysts would break down every piece of information about Council military capabilities. Do-hyun opened a case that looked like it contained Earth souvenirs. Inside were advanced scanning devices that would map every inch of the crystal spires over the next few weeks. The Council's greatest military secret would soon be completely understood by their primitive guests. They have no idea what they've just invited into their home, Young-mi observed. Good, Taeho replied. Let's keep it that way. Tomorrow we begin building our network. By the time the Council realizes what Earth really is, it will be far too late for them to do anything about it. The three agents returned to their roles, becoming humble human diplomats once again. But now they had work to do. Earth's plan was moving forward exactly as intended. And the Galactic Council had just made the biggest mistake in their 3,000-year history. Outside their windows, the stars of the Council's territory sparkled peacefully. Soon those same stars would belong to Earth. 1 year after first contact, humans could be found throughout Council space. They worked as maintenance technicians on mining stations, cultural researchers in alien libraries, trade clerks in busy spaceports, and data analysts in government buildings. To the Council species, they were useful servants and interesting curiosities. Nothing more. Dongjun Seo wiped sweat from his forehead as he finished calibrating the mining laser on Nexari Station 7. As a human engineer, he was paid well to maintain equipment that the aliens considered beneath their attention. His supervisor, a Nexari named Koltek, watched him work with approval. Good job, human, Koltek said. Your species may be primitive, but you have steady hands for detail work. Thank you, sir, Dongjun replied humbly. I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with such advanced machinery. What Koltek didn't know was that Dongjun had just finished installing microscopic monitoring devices throughout the entire mining operation. Over the past months, he had mapped the complete industrial capacity of 3 major Nexari worlds, documenting production schedules, resource flows, and transportation networks. Earth now knew exactly how much the Nexari Empire could produce and how quickly they could move it. On the academic world of Veltara Prime, So-Young Huang sat in the Great Library, apparently struggling with ancient collective texts. As a xenolinguistics student, she spent her days studying alien languages and cultural documents. Her professors found her dedication charming if somewhat slow. "Remember, human student," Professor Zelmoth explained patiently, "this dialect was used for military communications during the Third Expansion War. The syntax is quite complex for primitive minds." "I understand." "Professor?" So-Young replied, her stylus moving carefully across her tablet. "Could you explain how the command structures were organized?" Professor Zelmoth was happy to help, explaining in detail how collective military units communicated, how orders were transmitted across vast distances, and what protocols were used for emergency situations. To him, it was ancient history. To So-Young, it was current intelligence about how the collective military still operated. Meanwhile, on the peaceful world of Haven, Jae-Won Yoon attended daily seminars at the Council's Institute for Peace Studies. As a researcher studying conflict resolution, he listened carefully to lectures about galactic diplomacy and war prevention. "The key to maintaining peace," explained Dr. Velteran during one session, "is overwhelming defensive capability. When potential aggressors know they cannot win, they do not attack." "Fascinating," Jae-Won said, raising his hand. "How do the different Council species coordinate their defenses? What happens if communication is disrupted during a crisis?" The other students, mostly young aliens from various Council worlds, nodded at the good question. Dr. Velteran launched into a detailed explanation of defensive protocols, emergency command procedures, and backup communication systems. Everyone learned valuable lessons about preventing war. Jae-Won learned exactly how to cause one. The peaceful routine of Council space was shattered when the first reports came in from the Outer Rim. Strange ships had appeared near the Keth colony of Theros, vessels that seemed to bend light around them and ignored all attempts at communication. The attack was swift and devastating. The colony's defensive platforms fired their most powerful weapons, but the energy beams passed harmlessly through the attacking ships, as if they weren't there. In return, the mysterious attackers used weapons that tore through shields like paper and left burning wounds in the planet's surface. By the time Council reinforcements arrived, Theros was silent. The colony's 3 million inhabitants had vanished without a trace, leaving behind empty buildings and puzzling energy readings that made no sense to Council scientists. "We're calling them Void Hunters," announced Admiral Ketron during an emergency Council session. 17 attacks in the past month, always the same pattern. They appear without warning, ignore our weapons, and leave nothing behind. The Council chamber was filled with worried whispers. How could their advanced technology be useless against these mysterious enemies? "Perhaps we should request assistance from all member species," suggested Councillor Morthes. "Even the younger civilizations might have fresh perspectives." Taeho stood up in the observer section, his expression earnest and concerned. "Honored councillors, Earth offers whatever help we can provide. We know our technology is limited, but maybe human creativity could offer new ideas." Several council members exchanged glances. The humans had been helpful in small ways over the past year, always eager to assist and learn. Perhaps their primitive thinking might see something that advanced minds had missed. "Very well," declared Councillor Vextar. "Earth's delegation may review our data on these Void Hunter attacks. Any insights would be welcome." Du Hyun bowed deeply. "We are honored by your trust. Earth's military analysts will study everything carefully." As the session ended and the Council dispersed to manage the growing crisis, the human delegation gathered in their embassy. The room now contained sophisticated equipment disguised as simple Earth artifacts, creating an unbreakable secure zone. "Excellent timing," Taeho said once their privacy field was active. "How are our people positioned?" Young Mai consulted her hidden display. "Dongjun has complete industrial intelligence on Nexari, Keth, and collective manufacturing. So-Young has decoded all primary military communication protocols. Jae-Won has identified every weakness in their command structure. And our agents throughout Council space? In position and ready," Do-Hyun reported. 200 operatives in critical locations across 57 worlds. They're trusted by their alien supervisors and have access to essential systems. Taeho activated his secure communicator. "Command, this is Ambassador Kim. The Void Hunter scenario is proceeding perfectly. Council unity is already showing cracks. The response came through his neural implant. Confirmed, Ambassador. How are they handling the attacks? Exactly as predicted. They're confused, frightened, and turning on each other. Each species is secretly preparing to protect their own territory first. Trade has slowed, and there's growing suspicion between former allies. Excellent. Prepare for Phase 4. The final Void Hunter assault will target their military academy in 2 weeks. Make sure Earth is positioned to offer the solution. Understood, Command. As the Void Hunter attacks continued, the Council's response became increasingly desperate. Their best scientists couldn't understand the enemy technology. Their most powerful weapons were useless, and their traditional tactics failed completely. The Nexari began quietly moving their fleet closer to their core worlds. The Keth started hoarding resources and restricting trade with other species. The collective withdrew several battle groups from joint patrols, claiming they needed to protect their own territory. In the council chambers, debates grew heated as trust eroded. The Nexari are abandoning their patrol commitments, accused Thuligan during one heated session. Because the Keth have cut off our supply lines. Vextar shot back. How can we maintain patrols without fuel and materials? Perhaps each species should handle their own defense, suggested Morthus coldly. Clearly, cooperation is not working. Throughout these arguments, the human delegation sat quietly in their observer seats, taking notes and occasionally offering gentle suggestions for compromise. They appeared deeply concerned about the growing divisions in the council. Honored counselors, Tejo said during one particularly bitter debate, Earth understands that these are difficult times. Perhaps we could help with communication between your fleets. We have experience with simpler coordination methods that might work when advanced systems fail. The suggestion was politely declined but noted. The humans were trying to help, even if their primitive ideas weren't useful yet. As the crisis deepened, Earth's operatives throughout Council space began the next phase of their mission. Dongjun started introducing subtle flaws into mining equipment that would cause production delays. So Young began accidentally corrupting communication databases with translation errors. Jaewon started spreading rumors about which species could be trusted and which were planning to abandon their allies. None of these actions were traced back to humans. The Council species were too busy fighting their mysterious enemy and arguing with each other to notice that their loyal human helpers were making everything worse. The largest Void Hunter attack came without warning. A massive fleet appeared near the Council's Central Military Academy, the fortress station where their finest officers trained and their most advanced weapons were tested. It was the heart of Council military power, protected by defenses that had never been challenged. The battle lasted 18 hours. Council forces threw everything they had at the Void Hunters, using weapons that could destroy planets and shields that could stop stars. Nothing worked. The enemy ships moved through their defenses like ghosts, striking at will and vanishing before retaliation could arrive. When the Academy finally fell silent, the Council's military leadership was devastated. Hundreds of their best officers were gone, along with decades of advanced research and irreplaceable military secrets. In the aftermath, as rescue ships searched the wreckage, Tejo made a formal request to address the emergency council session. Honored counselors, he said, his voice heavy with sympathy. Earth grieves with you for the Void. Hunter War had raged for 8 long months. Entire star systems had gone dark as the mysterious enemies struck without warning and vanished just as quickly. Refugee fleets crowded the inner worlds, while Council forces struggled desperately against an enemy they couldn't understand or defeat. In the research laboratories beneath the crystal spires, Jung-Ho Lim worked alongside the Council's greatest scientists, studying captured Void Hunter artifacts. As Earth's lead researcher, he appeared fascinated but often confused by the alien technology that defied every known law of physics. The energy readings make no sense, muttered Dr. Kolvash, a brilliant Nexari physicist whose forearms moved constantly between different instruments. These weapons shouldn't be able to exist in our reality. What if they don't? Jung-Ho asked quietly, looking up from his basic scanner. I mean, what if they come from somewhere else entirely? Dr. Kolvash paused, 2 of his arms freezing mid-motion. Explain your primitive thinking, human. Well, Jung-Ho said hesitantly, on Earth we have theories about parallel dimensions, places where the rules of physics might be different. What if these void hunters aren't from distant space, but from a completely different reality? The alien scientists exchanged glances. The humans' idea was absurdly simple, but sometimes simple ideas led to breakthrough discoveries. They began running new tests based on Seung-ho's suggestion. 3 weeks later, Seung-ho burst into the laboratory with excitement that seemed barely controlled. "Doctors, I think I found something. The quantum signatures in these artifacts, they don't match our dimensional frequency." "Show us," Dr. Kolvash demanded, suddenly very interested. Seung-ho's hands shook as he connected his crude Earth computer to the advanced alien analysis systems. "If my calculations are right, these void hunters use dimensional anchor points to exist in our reality. But the anchors are unstable. They need constant energy to maintain cohesion." "Fascinating," breathed Dr. Morketh, the collective's chief scientist. "If we could disrupt these anchor points, the void hunters would be forced back to their own dimension." Seung-ho finished. "I've been working on a theoretical device that could generate the right frequency pulse, but I need help with the advanced components." The council scientists threw themselves into the project with desperate energy. Working around the clock, they helped Seung-ho build what appeared to be a breakthrough weapon, a dimensional disruptor that could theoretically send the void hunters back where they came from. Meanwhile, in the tactical command center, Na-yeon Kim sat quietly in the corner during strategy meetings. As Earth's tactical coordinator, she was allowed to observe as council military leaders planned their desperate defenses against the next void hunter assault. "We've lost 60% of our outer rim fleet," reported Admiral Ketran, his scales dulled with exhaustion. "Our remaining forces are stretched across 17 critical systems. We simply don't have enough ships to defend everything." "Perhaps we should consolidate our forces," suggested General Tekvar. "Protect the core worlds and abandon the outer colonies." "Unacceptable," growled Commander Zultok. "The Keth people will not abandon their colonies without a fight." Na-yeon raised her hand tentatively. "Honored commanders, may I suggest something? On Earth, when our ancient armies faced superior enemies, they sometimes used— what do you call them? Guerrilla tactics?" The alien officers looked at her with mixture of amusement and curiosity. "Explain." "Human," Admiral Ketran said. "Instead of meeting the enemy in direct battle, small groups would attack supply lines and communications. Hit-and-run tactics. Make the enemy spread their forces thin, trying to defend everywhere at once." General Thekvar's crystalline body hummed, with what might have been laughter. "Human, these are void hunters, not primitive ground troops. They appear instantly and strike with overwhelming force." "Yes, sir," Na-yeon replied humbly. "I just thought, maybe if we could predict where they'd attack next, we could have small, fast ships ready to test Seung-ho's new weapon, while the main fleet stayed safe." The suggestion sparked unexpected interest. The council had been throwing massive fleets at the void hunters with no success. Perhaps smaller, more mobile forces could succeed where overwhelming firepower had failed. In orbit around Zentara Prime, Hyunwoo Park supervised the final preparations of Earth's small defensive fleet. As commander of what the council believed was Earth's entire military force, he coordinated with council shipyards to outfit his vessels with the dimensional disruptor prototypes. "Your ships are quite impressive for a young species," admitted Shipmaster Veltok as they watched the human vessels dock. "Simple design but solid engineering." "Thank you, Shipmaster," Hyunwoo replied modestly. "Earth may not have advanced technology, but we build things to last." What Veltok didn't realize was that the simple human ships contained technology decades ahead of anything in council space. Their hulls were constructed from materials that could absorb energy weapon impacts and convert them to power. Their computers processed information faster than the council's most advanced systems. Their engines could achieve speeds that would leave council ships far behind. But to alien eyes, they looked like sturdy, primitive vessels built by a species just learning to travel between stars. The test came sooner than expected. Void hunter scouts appeared in the Kepler system, preparing for what intelligence suggested would be a major assault on the industrial world of Kepler Prime. The combined Council and Earth fleet that responded was smaller than previous efforts. Following Na-yeon's suggestion about mobile tactics, Council ships provided heavy firepower while the human vessels carried the experimental dimensional disruptors. "All ships, this is Admiral Ketran," came the transmission as the enemy fleet materialized. "Remember, we're testing new tactics. Human vessels will target the enemy anchor points while Council forces provide cover fire." The battle began like all the others. Council weapons fired brilliant energy beams that passed harmlessly through the ghostly Void Hunter ships. But this time the human vessels moved with precision that amazed their alien allies. Yunwu's ship, the Soul's Pride, dove between two Void Hunter cruisers at impossible speed, its dimensional disruptor humming with power. The weapon fired, and for the first time in 8 months a Void Hunter ship screamed. The enemy vessel writhed in space as reality reasserted itself around it. Its ghostly form became solid, and suddenly Council weapons found their mark. The Void Hunter ship exploded in a burst of normal matter and energy. "It works," shouted Admiral Ketron over the communication channels. "The human weapon actually works." The tide of battle turned rapidly. Human ships darted through the Void Hunter fleet like deadly fish, their disruptors forcing enemy vessels back into normal space where Council weapons could destroy them. Within an hour, the entire Void Hunter force was eliminated. News of the victory spread through Council space like wildfire. The mysterious invincible enemy could be defeated. The humans, primitive but clever, had found the solution that eluded the galaxy's greatest minds. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council were called. Earth's status was immediately elevated from junior member to full partnership. The Council begged for mass production of the dimensional disruptors and full access to Earth's unique perspective on warfare. "Of course we'll help," Taeho declared before the assembled Council. "Earth is honored to serve alongside such distinguished civilizations. We'll share our technology freely." What followed was the most systematic military campaign the galaxy had ever seen. Human-designed weapons equipped Council fleets throughout known space. Naeon's tactical innovations revolutionized how the combined forces fought. Earth's ships, no longer hiding their capabilities, demonstrated coordination and efficiency that made veteran alien crews look clumsy by comparison. The Void Hunters, caught off guard by weapons that could actually harm them, found themselves being hunted instead of hunting. Their hit-and-run tactics failed against human strategic thinking. Their technological advantages meant nothing against weapons specifically designed to counter them. System after system was liberated. Void Hunter strongholds were discovered and destroyed. The enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for 8 months was being systematically eliminated by the combined might of the Council and their new human allies. But as victory approached, some Council members began to feel uneasy. During a celebration dinner after the liberation of the Arcturus system, Councillor Vextar found himself studying the human delegation with new eyes. "Tell me, Ambassador Kim," he said carefully, "how exactly did your scientists develop dimensional theory so quickly? Such concepts usually take centuries to understand." Taeho smiled warmly. "Earth has always been good at practical problem-solving, Counselor. When we see a problem, we focus all our energy on finding solutions." "And your military coordination," added General Tekvar. "Your tactics are remarkably sophisticated for a species new to space warfare." "We learn fast," Do-hyun replied modestly, "and we had excellent teachers in the Council's military academies." The aliens nodded, but privately, doubts were growing. The humans were helpful, perhaps too helpful. Their technology worked better than expected. Their ships performed beyond. 3 months after the last Void Hunter stronghold fell, the crystal spires buzzed with nervous energy. The Galactic Council had called an emergency session, and everyone knew why. The human problem had to be addressed. In the private chambers reserved for senior council members, the final preparations were being made. Councillor Vextar adjusted his ceremonial robes while reviewing his carefully prepared speech. The plan was simple. Thank the humans for their service, then politely ask them to return home. "Remember," he told the assembled council leaders, "we must be diplomatic. The humans helped us defeat the Void Hunters, so we owe them courtesy. But they've learned too much about our technology and military capabilities. They need to leave Council space before they become a security risk." "Agreed," rumbled Thulligan. "Their ships are more advanced than they initially appeared, and their tactical knowledge is suspiciously sophisticated. It's better to end this relationship now while we're still in control." Councillor Morthest nodded, her crystalline form catching the light. "We'll offer them a generous trade agreement and some obsolete technology as payment for their services. That should satisfy their primitive desires for advancement." Admiral Ketron looked troubled. "Are we sure this is wise? Their dimensional disruptor technology could be valuable in future conflicts." "Which is exactly why they need to leave," Vextar replied firmly. We cannot allow a junior species to possess weapons that could threaten Council security. Once they're gone, our scientists can reverse engineer their innovations. The main Council chamber filled rapidly as representatives from all 12 star systems took their places. The atmosphere was tense, with whispered conversations and nervous glances toward the human observer section. Tae-ho Kim sat quietly with his delegation, reviewing notes on a simple tablet. Youngmi Park checked her translation device, while Do-hyun Lee appeared to be studying the architectural details of the Great Chamber. They looked exactly like the humble diplomats they had pretended to be for the past 2 years. Councillor Vextar called the session to order, his voice echoing through the vast space. Honored representatives, we gather today to address the changing relationships within our galactic community. He began his speech with praise for human contributions during the Void Hunter crisis. The aliens nodded approvingly as he listed Earth's achievements: the breakthrough in dimensional theory, the innovative tactical approaches, the brave sacrifices made by human crews. However, Vextar continued, his tone becoming more formal, the Council believes that Earth would benefit from returning to its home system to develop these new capabilities at its own pace. We offer our friendship and gratitude, along with continued trade relationships, but feel that isolation would best serve humanity's growth. The chamber was silent as the words hung in the air. This was as close as the Council would come to ordering the humans to leave. Tae-ho stood slowly, his tablet forgotten. Honored councilors, may I respond to your generous offer? Of course, Ambassador Kim, Vextar replied, settling back in his chair with visible relief. The human was being reasonable, but something had changed in Tae-ho's demeanor. The nervous energy was gone, replaced by a stillness that seemed to make the enormous chamber feel smaller. When he spoke, his voice carried an authority that hadn't been there before. Before you make this decision, there are some things you should know about Earth. The lights in the chamber dimmed automatically as holographic projectors activated throughout the space. Youngmi stood and walked to a control panel that materialized from the floor, her movements confident and precise. For the past 2 years, she began, her nervous manner completely absent, Earth has maintained complete surveillance of Council space. The first hologram showed the crystal spires themselves, but not as the Council had ever seen them. Every room, every corridor, every security system was highlighted and labeled. Technical specifications scrolled past in streams of data that made the alien representatives lean forward in growing alarm. Every communication has been monitored, Youngmi continued. Every military installation mapped. Every strategic resource cataloged. More holograms appeared, showing detailed intelligence on every Council world: mining operations, industrial centers, fleet positions, defensive installations, all displayed with a level of detail that should have been impossible for outsiders to obtain. Do-hyun rose from his seat, no longer the confused military observer who had stumbled through alien corridors. Earth's defensive fleet that you've been working alongside is actually the advanced scout group of a military force that numbers in the hundreds of thousands of ships. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers as new displays showed the true scale of Earth's military might. Massive fleets hung in the darkness beyond Council space, their positions marked on star maps that revealed just how thoroughly the humans had surrounded their former allies. Each vessel, Do-hyun continued calmly, carries technology that makes Council warships look like toys from a previous age. The holographic displays shifted to show technical comparisons. Human ships that had appeared simple and primitive were revealed to be marvels of engineering that surpassed anything in Council space. Their weapons, their shields, their engines, everything was decades ahead of what the aliens had believed possible. But the revelation that truly broke the Council came when Tae-ho stepped forward to deliver the final truth humanity didn't recently discover. Faster-than-light travel, he said, his words falling into absolute silence. We've had it for over a century. Earth isn't a single world struggling to reach the stars. We are the capital of an interstellar civilization that spans 47 star systems and includes over 300 colonized worlds. The Council chamber was so quiet that the hum of the life support system seemed deafening. Representatives who had ruled space for thousands of years stared in horror at the species they had dismissed as primitive newcomers. Youngmi activated another display. The Void Hunters were actually an advanced probe sent by Earth to test Council military capabilities and unity. The words hit the chamber like a physical blow. Counselor Morthus actually shattered one of her crystalline appendages as she gripped her chair too tightly. Every attack was carefully calculated, Do-hyun explained. We pushed you to your breaking point, without causing irreparable harm to civilian populations. The war was Earth's final examination of whether the Council deserved to continue existing. Assessment results, Young-mi announced as the final display activated. Verdict, manageable threat, suitable for integration or replacement. The three humans stood calmly in the center of the chamber, as hundreds of alien representatives struggled to process what they had learned. The species they had offered to protect was actually their conqueror. The students they had tried to teach were actually their judges. Tae-ho waited for the initial shock to pass before speaking again. The Council has three options. His voice carried clearly through the stunned silence. First, willing integration into Earth's expanding civilization with full cultural autonomy. Your species maintain their identities and territories while accepting human leadership in interstellar affairs. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke. Second, supervised transition to a new government structure with Earth oversight. We help you reorganize your societies to be more efficient and stable, with gradual independence as you prove your capability. The implications were clear. This was barely disguised occupation. Third, military occupation and forced reconstruction. This option is available but not preferred. Do-hyun stepped forward. Earth's main battle fleet is currently positioned at the edge of Council space. All major Council military assets are being tracked by stealth drones that have been in position for 18 months. To prove his point, tactical displays activated around the chamber, showing the real-time positions of every Council ship in their territory. Red markers indicated Earth's monitoring drones, which outnumbered Council vessels by nearly 10 to 1. The silence stretched until Counselor Vextar found his voice. It came out as barely a whisper. What are you? Tae-ho's response was delivered with a slight smile that somehow made it more terrifying than any threat. We are Earth. We are humanity. And we are what happens when a species learns that the universe is not as safe as it appears. We explored the galaxy and found civilizations that were powerful but complacent, advanced but naive. You possessed great technology but lacked the wisdom to use it effectively. He gestured to the displays surrounding them. For 3,000 years, the Council has maintained peace through mutual assured destruction. You avoided conflict because you feared each other's weapons, but you never learned to truly think strategically, to plan beyond the immediate crisis, to understand that your greatest threats might not come from where you expected. Young-mi added softly, every species we encountered made the same mistake. You saw our primitive technology and assumed primitive thinking. You never considered that we might be deliberately showing you exactly what we wanted you to see. The final question hung in the air like a sword. What are you going to be? For long minutes, the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in absolute silence, contemplating their complete miscalculation of the quiet species they had dismissed as harmless primitives. 6 months had passed since Earth established its embassy in the Crystal Spires. The human delegation had become a familiar sight in the Council chambers, always sitting quietly in their observer seats, taking notes and asking simple questions that made the alien representatives feel wise and important. Hyejin Cho nervously approached the trade negotiation table, clutching a folder of papers that looked handwritten, compared to the holographic displays used by other species. She was Earth's new trade representative, and today was her first major meeting with Council merchants. Honored traders, she began, her voice slightly shaky. Earth would like to offer raw materials from our system in exchange for some of your older technologies. We know we cannot afford your advanced equipment, but perhaps some outdated items would help us learn. The alien traders looked at each other with amusement. Zeklin, a wealthy merchant from the Nexari Empire, leaned back in his chair. Little human, you are honest about your limitations. This is refreshing. What raw materials does your primitive world offer? We have metals, Hyejin replied, consulting her papers carefully. Iron, copper, titanium. Also some rare earth elements. Nothing fancy, but pure quality. And what do you hope to learn from our outdated technology? Asked Veltar, a Keth trader whose scales gleamed with expensive implants. Maybe some better engines for our ships, or improved communication systems. We still use radio waves for most of our transmissions. Heejin looked embarrassed by this admission. The traders exchanged knowing looks. Radio waves, how charmingly primitive. We can spare some fusion drive designs from 50 years ago, Zeklon offered generously, and perhaps some basic quantum communicators we were going to scrap anyway. That would be wonderful, Heejin exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. Earth scientists will be so excited to study such advanced technology. What the traders didn't know was that Earth scientists had already perfected fusion technology 200 years ago. The rare Earth elements Heejin was offering were actually precisely crafted samples designed to make the aliens underestimate Earth's industrial capabilities. Every outdated technology they traded would be analyzed, improved, and added to Earth's already vast arsenal. Meanwhile, in another part of the spires, Woo-Sung Kang was having the time of his life in the Council's Biological Research Center. As Earth xenobiologist, he had been given access to study alien life forms, and his enthusiasm seemed boundless. Incredible, he gasped, examining a Nexari tissue sample through what appeared to be a basic microscope. The cellular structure is completely different from Earth life. How do your proteins fold with this amino acid sequence? Dr. Morglin, the Nexari scientist supervising him, puffed up with pride. Our evolution followed superior pathways. Nexari biology is far more efficient than the carbon-based life forms from your world. Fascinating, Woo-Sung replied, making careful notes. And the Keth scales? How do they interface with their nervous systems? Each scale contains millions of nerve endings connected directly to their spinal column, Dr. Morglin explained. It gives them enhanced sensory capabilities that primitive species lack. Woo-Sung nodded eagerly, asking dozens of innocent questions about alien physiology, metabolism, and genetic structure. To the alien scientists, he seemed like an excited student learning about superior life forms. In reality, he was cataloging every biological weakness and strength of each council species, information that would prove invaluable if Earth ever needed to develop targeted weapons or medical countermeasures. In the technology observation deck, Min Xiaojang sat surrounded by holographic displays showing council military exercises. As Earth's technology observer, she was allowed to watch these demonstrations to learn about advanced warfare techniques. Pay attention. Human, instructed Commander Thekvar, a collective military officer whose crystalline body hummed with internal energy. This is how real civilizations conduct warfare. On the display, council ships moved in perfect formation through a simulated battle. Their weapons fired beams of pure energy, and their shields deflected incoming attacks with beautiful light displays. The precision is amazing, Minseo breathed, her stylus moving quickly across her tablet. How do you coordinate so many ships without confusion? Superior technology, Thekvar replied proudly. Our command networks can process millions of variables simultaneously. Our shields can stop any known weapon, and our energy weapons can destroy any target. What about smaller, faster ships? Minseo asked innocently. Do you ever use guerrilla tactics? Thekvar made a sound like breaking glass, which was collective laughter. Guerrilla tactics are for primitive species without proper technology. Advanced civilizations use overwhelming force applied with mathematical precision. Minseo nodded and took more notes. Every formation pattern, every weapon signature, every tactical doctrine was being recorded and transmitted back to Earth's military analysts. The Council was teaching her exactly how to defeat them. During this time, the Council had begun seriously discussing what they called the human question. In private sessions, they debated whether to formally integrate Earth into their civilization or maintain it as a protected territory. The humans show promise, admitted Councillor Vextar during one such meeting. They learned quickly and seemed genuinely grateful for our guidance. Perhaps too quickly, worried Councillor Morthis. Their questions are very specific sometimes, and they adapt to new concepts faster than most primitive species. You worry too much, rumbled Thulagan. They are limited by their short lifespans and single-planet perspective. What threat could they possibly pose to civilizations that span multiple star systems? I agree with Thulagan, Vextar declared. Humans are curious and adaptable, but these are useful traits in a junior species. We should encourage their development under our guidance. The Council voted to offer Earth a junior membership status, which would give humans limited access to Council resources in exchange for raw materials and labor. They saw it as a generous gift to help a struggling species. When Taiho received this offer during the next council session, he appeared overwhelmed with gratitude. Honorable Counselors, Earth accepts this incredible honor. We will work hard to prove worthy of your trust. That evening, the human embassy hosted a cultural exchange event. Young Mai performed a traditional Korean dance, her movements graceful and hypnotic. The alien audience watched in fascination as she spun and leaped, her colorful silk hanbok flowing like water. Beautiful, whispered Sektar to his companion. Such simple art, but it has a certain charm. Primitive species often express themselves through physical movement, replied his friend. It's all they have before they develop proper technology. The alien saw only entertainment, but young Mi's dance was actually a complex coded message. Every gesture, every step, every turn contained information being transmitted to sleeper agents throughout council space. Earth's network was growing larger every day, and the council had no idea. After the performance, the human delegation gathered in their private quarters. The room now contained several new pieces of Earth art that were actually sophisticated communication devices and data processors. Report, Taiho said once their security field was active. Trade network established, Hyajian reported, her nervous demeanor completely gone. We now have access to 17 major industrial centers and 43 mining operations. They're practically giving us their resource maps. Biological analysis complete, Wusung added. Every council species has exploitable weaknesses. The Nexari are vulnerable to specific viral infections. The Keth have a fatal allergy to modified silicon compounds. And the collective can be disrupted by certain electromagnetic frequencies. Military intelligence gathering ahead of schedule, Mincio concluded. Their tactical doctrine is rigid and predictable. They rely entirely on technological superiority and have no experience fighting opponents who think differently. Taiho smiled. Excellent work. Command is very pleased with our progress. Phase 2 is complete. We move to Phase 3 next month when the Void Hunter crisis begins. Are you sure they'll fall for it? Young Mi asked. Completely, Taiho replied. They're so convinced of their own superiority that they can't imagine being outsmarted by primitive humans. When the Void Hunters attack, they'll be desperate enough to accept any help we offer. The 3 original agents looked out their window at the lights of the crystal spires. In a few weeks, those lights would dim as the council faced an enemy they couldn't understand or defeat. And Earth would be right there, ready to help solve the problem they had created. The galaxy's most powerful civilization was about to learn that sometimes the greatest threats come from those you least suspect.